Hey, welcome back to the Big Ranch Show. As always, thank you for joining me. If you could, hit the subscribe button down below, and let's get right to it. Now, the other day, Ben Carson, Secretary of HUD, Housing Urban Development, decided he would put out some proposals to make changes to the housing program. Now, this is all well and good. When I first saw it, I was rather pissed about it, though, because I didn't see an exemption for elderly people or even the disabled. But it turns out the more I've read into it, there's a few good things and a few bad things about this particular proposal. So first, let me start out with the bad things. One, the main bad thing that I see is the fact that it's going to increase the rent on those people who don't need their rent increased. These people are needing help. They're needing to get back on their feet. And they need to be able to do that. They shouldn't be straddled with even more expenses. They're looking to raise the rent on people in HUD housing anywhere from $50 to $150 a month. They want to raise it from 30% of income to 35% of income, which is roughly anywhere between $50 to $150 depending on your income. And this could be detrimental to people trying to trying to get back on their feet. A lot of people in HUD housing are not there because they want to be. Trust me. As I am sitting here right now talking to you, I do not want to be here. But many of us are stuck here. Because we're in a very bad spot. Some of us are disabled and don't have another option in the town we live in. Or you're just in a bad spot where you hit a financial bump in the road and you need a place to be because you either lost your home or you couldn't afford your rent anymore and you lost your rent house or whatever. So raising the rent on these people is not going to be helpful. Sure, you may say it'll make the program a little more sustainable. But I don't believe that sustainability is actually going to be taken care of by 5%. Increase in rent. So that's one of the negatives. Another negative that I found in the whole thing is the fact that they want to get rid of medical deductions. They don't want to allow disabled people and elderly people to be able to deduct their cost of medical supplies and drugs and things like that that are prescribed by their doctor. They don't want us to be able to deduct that from our rent. Because they say it gives us an unfair advantage to other people that don't have those deductions. But the problem is, many disabled people and many elderly people have high costs in medical supplies. Because either their insurance doesn't cover it, or their insurance doesn't cover enough of it. I'm on Medicaid. Medicaid pays for pretty much everything I need. And there are some things I wish I could take off my rent that I still can't, even with the medical deductions. But if I had an instance where I had to pay for medical, prescription drugs out of pocket, it would be right there. There would be, I had this medical deduction, we'll take it off my rent over the next year. Which would, I'd be able to survive that. I know many elderly people that have $200 or $300 a month or more in out-of-pocket prescription drug costs that they have to pay that live in HUD housing projects. So this is a terrible idea here because people need this help. You've got people that are spending as much as rent on medical equipment or prescription drugs, and they need the help. Most people are too proud to sit there and ask for help when they don't need it. But those are two of the worst things I saw. Now the thing is, for the elderly and the poor, this is a very vital program. And I understand wanting to make it sustainable, but I don't think you should do it on the backs of the very people you were meant to help. But the one thing is, they at least are exempting the rent increases and the work requirements, which I will get to in a minute. They are exempting the elderly and disabled people that qualify from that. From those particular things. And that's good for somebody like myself, but it's not good for, say, somebody who is a new mom, for example, has a baby at home, just had a baby, say they lost their husband somehow or another, or the guy just isn't there. Who's going to take care of that baby? You say daycare, but if the mother is required to work, which I support, who's going to take care of the child? I think there has to be some kind of leeway there. Because if you have a child that's required to be at home, that you're required to be at home to take care of because you have nobody else, then I think there's got to be an exception made. Now, I'm not saying that people should just go off and willy-nilly have kids so they can have free rent. I think that should be, curtailed as well. Now, on to some of the things that I see as good in this plan. When I first read this plan, I didn't think there was anything good about it. I didn't see anything that I was reading about that made it any good. First off, though, the articles I read were not talking about the exemptions for the elderly and the disabled. They were saying that this would pertain to everybody. But first good thing I saw were they want to put work requirements on people in HUD housing that are able to work. I truly believe that if you're physically able to leave your house and do a job, then you should be able to go do a job. Or at least be looking for a job. That's a requirement for food stamps. I don't see why that would not be a requirement for HUD housing. So I have no problem with that. I have no qualms with that. That sounds like a good idea to help people be able to, get back on their feet. But we also, there again, I think you have to have some exceptions for dependents at home, where if you don't have anybody else to take care of them. Because daycare costs are outrageous. And there is no way that somebody that's fallen on hard times and needing HUD housing is really going to be able to afford daycare for their child. But I think there should be something they should be able to do if they can, if they're physically able to do so and they can do the work, maybe they can find something to do at home, while they're taking care of their child. On that front, that's what I think they should, there should be some exemptions. But I truly believe that work requirements are not that bad of a thing. Because if you're physically able to work, you should work. It's one of those, if you can work, you should. And if you can't, if you find yourself in a situation where working from home isn't really viable, because say you don't have the access to things you need for that, then maybe there should be an exception to let you stay home with your child until you can find a way to have somebody take care of your kid. Hopefully, you'd hope that people would have family, but there are times out there where people's families disown them after they have a child because they have a baby that they don't approve of. They have a child outside of wedlock or something. Even if it's just an accident, they get disowned by their families, which is terrible. But that's what happens these days, and has happened my entire life here in America. So it wouldn't be out of the norm for that to happen. Another good thing I saw, though, was they do want to simplify. They want to simplify how your rent is calculated. They want to give, set amounts of rent based on income. And I guess they want to do away with the 30 and 35% kind of stuff they're talking about doing anyway. I guess they're working on stages. They want to simplify and streamline rent. And that makes sense to a point. But I'm going to sit here and tell you right now, the calculation of your rent is not that difficult. Except for medical deductions, currently, it's 35% of your income. Case closed. Or 30%. Right now, it's 30% of your income. Case closed. Could go up to 35% if this passes. It's not that difficult. The only thing they have really difficult, the only difficulties I can see in the whole process is figuring out the medical deductions and figuring out, as in our location anyway, they have to figure out and submit the thing for utilities. And so that is extra work, I think, for the management of the HUD housing facility. I agree that is a problem, and I think they need to be able to, have an easy way to do that without getting rid of medical deductions. Secondly, a second thing I found that I really thought I kind of support, I actually really support, and I wish it was already the law. I wish somebody had thought about it in a previous administration. But people in HUD housing facilities have to recertify every single year. And this creates a situation where if you make any bit more money and you're trying to get a leg up, boom, your rent goes up. And to do that in the course of a year, that can be difficult. Like my wife got a job in January 2016. By June of 2016, our rent was $600. Our ability to save money and get out of the situation we're in was nullified by the fact that her rent went up as quick as or our rent went up as quick as it did. It was kind of overnight. We didn't expect it to go up that much. We expected maybe $200 or $300, and boom, it was $600 over that. When they finally did the recertification process for us, and so this 3-year plan, they got a 3-year plan that they want to do, where it would allow people to lock in their rent, when they move in for 3 years, and they wouldn't have to recertify for 3 years. This would allow them a chance to do what they need to do. They would allow them to, save money that they need to save so they can get, a deposit and first and last month's rent for an apartment that's not a HUD housing facility and get themselves back on their feet. And I think that's what HUD should be about. It should be about getting people back on their feet, not locking them into a situation where they can't get out of it. So that's a few good things that I saw in the deal. Now, like I said, my biggest issue is raising rent on the poor that already can't afford it. I think that's bad. And, increasing the amount of time is a good thing. The amount of time of a lease before you have to recertify, I think, is a really good thing. I think it's actually pretty awesome to be able to do it that way. So, there are things I support and things I don't. There are things I hope Congress, when they see this proposal, will say, no, we're not passing that. We're not going to get rid of medical exemptions. We're not going to raise your rent. But I'd like to see them say, but we will, help streamline the process a little more. We will find a better way for them to calculate medical things, medical deductions. And that we'll find a way to allow people to recertify once every 2 or 3 years as opposed to every single year, and allow them to get off of the government assistance that they are being required to be on. Because I will tell you that if you get a job, all of a sudden your rent just can double and triple immediately in your household. And right now, in my case, we're paying $600 a month in rent in an apartment that is not worth $500. And it's not the management's fault, it's a tiny little place. But anyhow, thanks for watching. This has been The Big Ranch Show. I've been your host, Jacob Keck, and I'll see you down the road.